So Amy, when I first come across you, you're this like gorgeous, solid Catholic woman, and then I learned that it wasn't always that way for you. You weren't even brought up Catholic.
No. Catholicism is a pretty recent thing in my world. So I became Catholic in 2007. My previous life was very, very different from the life that I live.
So did you have any exposure to the Catholic Church before or in your upbringing?
Yeah, I thought that it was like really, really bad, like stay away from Catholics type of attitude. My parents were very loosely Anglican, but they were, would I say, anti-Catholic? Yeah, there's quite a lot of negative thoughts and feelings about Catholics. So to become a Catholic and marry a Catholic was pretty extraordinary.
And you get Hugo off a sweet barrel?
Yeah, just wee, because I know... Oh, look at that.
I think this one likes me.
It's gorgeous.
They look really tired.
So we're going outside.
Yeah, they do have to sleep most of the day.
So definitely all of that.
I mean, you're allowed to believe in God so long as it doesn't affect your life too much. That was kind of the upbringing, really. It was the ideas like you can't get divorced, you can't use contraception, you're gonna have loads and loads of kids and just be like a miserable, like have a terrible life. That was the main hostility, I think, towards Catholicism. It's quite a serious religion, isn't it? It dramatically changes your life, and I think that my mum found that a little bit frightening. We see things much more black and white, so it's kind of like it's either right or it's wrong. If you actually have a moral compass that you have to run with. I think life is pretty difficult on a lot of levels, and it's actually really helpful to have a moral compass that's just like, yeah, here we are in this situation, here's the answer. One issue that my mum had was the idea of having loads of children, that would be a real negative. And like, you know, that idea of not using contraception and things like that would be really hard to live by. But actually, it's totally wonderful. I feel free. I don't have to put chemicals in my body to restrict how many children I have to have. I don't have to feel guilty because I'm taking another year of maternity leave or whatever. I'm just living and relaxed and seeing what happens.
Does it scare you at all that you might have lots of children?
Don't get me wrong, pregnancy's tough for me. Having a newborn baby's pretty tough, breastfeeding's tough. But once you throw yourself in there, I think, and you just get on with it, it's actually a real fun roller coaster.
As long as that's over, like, that is such a tiny part, isn't it? Like, I remember when I first had a child and thinking, it just blew my mind. The whole thing blew my mind, and that was my whole world, was all at that time. I just thought my whole life is now. This is my whole life, this messy, difficult thing. But then that goes. Each time you sort of think, okay, yeah, that's just a season, isn't it? It's like a really busy bit.
It is. It is a season, but it's a glorious season. It's a glorious season. When I had my first baby, I spent my whole maternity leave dreading going back to work. You know, this liberating idea that we're all going to go off to work and we're all going to...
Have a great time?
Yeah, and be like professionals and stuff. I just felt the whole year was a year of anxiety, thinking I'm going to leave this baby and let somebody else bring this child up. And I actually want to. I packed my job in and I'm a stay-at-home mum, homeschooling mum. And I just think every day, it's like I've won the lottery. As difficult as it is, it's like I've won the lottery because I get to actually be with my children every day and somebody else doesn't tell me what I have to do and limit my time with them.
And orange. And
So would you say zero experience of Catholic upbringing? What about grandparents? Anyone in the family was religious?
No, nobody. It was very hostile. I'm painting my mum as a really negative person here. I love my mum, and we do have a very good relationship. But she did not like Catholicism. But that was mainly because she didn't understand it, and at that time, neither did I. And it was a big journey. It took several years from the starting point to actually get enough knowledge to be able to say that is clearly reasonable and the truth. Because the hens are brooding.
Oh, I see what you mean. They can't...
They even take on the eggs that we know are not fertilised and they won't let us have them.
How did you tell the fertilised ones? Have you marked them?
We've put smiley faces on. Shall I show you a fertilised one?
This one's Stardust, my chicken.
Oh, is she? Like her name?
She's the one that lays white eggs.
Oh.
This is a fertilised one.
Oh.
It's got a scribble on it and a smiley face.
That's exciting.
I just had to do that. This one's very warm.
How long did it take to build up the farm? Bit by bit.
So we
Really
started
impressive.
this probably last summer. I mean, when we've only lived here for 1 year, and the garden was like a jungle. It was just loads of trees and just really messy.
It was really fun trying to sneak through the brambles with the.
Yeah.
For some reason, wherever it was like really bushy overhead, it smelled like. I don't know, I guess it kind of smelled tropical.
Yeah. It was really wild. So we spent the whole of last summer with a chainsaw and hacked it all down, and then we built this steadily, and in September we bought the hens.
Even you're great tour guide.
You know this?
My neighbours are going to be thinking, what?
Mum, you've got to hold them carefully like real eggs, because they are real eggs.
Yeah.
Do you like eggs? So how did you start your journey towards the Catholic faith? Was there a milestone in your life?
Yeah, I would say, do you know what? I would say the major milestone was I had a really, really disturbing teenage period.
Bertie, will you go and take some of those out for the kids?
There's no more ice creams.
Isn't there?
Oh, thanks.
I got some money for you.
Oh, money, good idea.
Yeah, so I was in a horrible, abusive relationship as a teenager.
What sort of age teenager?
17, 18. I had quite a negative view of men in general. So when he was very forceful with me. He was a little bit on the edge of violent. He was sexually abusive. I thought that was, I don't know if I'd call it normal, but it didn't disturb me as much as it should have done. But I did know that it was an awful situation to be in, and I found it really difficult to escape from it. I became pregnant by him and straight away railroaded into an abortion facility. And even though instinctively I knew the whole situation was a nightmare and I felt like my life was spiraled out of control and nothing that I was wanting was even on the cards. It was just, he made me do this. Now no, he made me have sex with him. And then and then all the adults in my life suggested that I should have an abortion because that was the responsible and rightful thing to do. I'm not trying to say that I wasn't culpable myself, but it was just the environment that I was in was so normalised, it was so regular, and I didn't really see an alternative as much as I wanted to see an alternative because it felt instinctively so wrong. I knew that I would regret it.
How did you know? What about it sounded wrong?
Well,
because you're so young, so for lots of young girls at that age, it just seems like obvious, but still instinctually.
Yeah, because you know when you're pregnant, you know that you're talking about a baby, don't you? And I think there's a lot of helpful words that people use, like, you know, it's just a bunch of cells, it's just product of pregnancy, it's parasitic, it's this and that. And I hate people who use that when you're talking about rape specifically, that it's parasitic and all these kind of negative things. But even though I heard those words and I did latch onto them because they helped, I knew we were talking about a baby, and I knew even though I might not like the father whatsoever, that is actually my child that we're talking about here. And the thing is, the noise from the opposition was so loud. You need to be responsible, and what kind of life is this baby going to have, and what's this going to do to your life?
So did you receive some sort of like counselling or something?
Yeah, I mean, I went to a youth centre. I had pro-life counsellor spoke to me, or rather didn't speak to me, just let me talk and kind of... I do recall saying to her, I do think I'm going to regret this for the rest of my life. And she just kind of nodded and was like, didn't really say anything. I mean,
What did you want? What were you seeking for something?
Yeah, like, if you're going to regret it for the rest of your life, why would you do it? Don't do it. Let's look at some alternatives. Because you can have that baby. If you don't want to raise the child, let's find someone else who will raise the child. Let's get you counselling for the psychological trauma of being in an abusive relationship for the last year. Let's put things in place to keep you safe whilst you're in college so that someone isn't harassing you all the time. None of that. Like, I continued to be harassed for another 6 to 8 months after. I did ultimately, unfortunately, I did go through with the abortion, and I felt like I just dropped into hell. It was like a very dark, sad place where I recall walking around college and I felt like I had been pierced through my heart, like a big lance had just gone straight through my chest. The anxiety and the sorrow was physically painful. It was just an agony, just an everyday, daily agony. And I do recall thinking, when you're faced with evil, I think sometimes it can be that makes you think there must be a God. Because if things can be this bad, there's clearly the devil. So perhaps if the devil is real, there is a spiritual battle and I'm in it. I'm on the losing side right now. And that's how I felt, like I was going to hell and I just wanted to get on with it because it would be better to go to hell than to live like this. Which might sound really dramatic, and as I say it out loud, is such a relief and a liberation to be able to say it, because at the time I could not say those things. I had to pretend like everything was great. My parents didn't know about the abortion. They didn't know about the relationship I was in either, which was why I hid the abortion from them, because I didn't want them to know that I was entrapped in this awful relationship.
Well, that's frightening to think that as parents, your child, 17, 18, can go through an abortion without you having any idea.
Yeah.
So was it not even suggested by the people that were counselling you that perhaps you should tell your mum and dad?
No. I did a really good job, actually, of keeping that from my mum. And even though teachers knew at college, youth workers knew, no one suggested telling my parents, and my parents never found out.
So it was important enough for them to share it between themselves.
But certainly they would not have given my mum that information, which is a risk in state school, that, you know, secrets are very well kept.
From parents?
Yes. Well, that was my experience.
That is very concerning, because they did have some level of understanding that this should be shared and they should be supporting you, but not to your parents.
I believe they knew that I was being abused, and they never said or did anything. So when I told them I was pregnant, they never never raised any alarm bells or thought, you know, perhaps I should do something. I don't know, maybe it wasn't their job role, but...
An easy solution versus a very tricky one.
It's uncomfortable. It's something that we really do need to think about.
Who has the children's best interest at heart?
Yeah.
What would your mum have said if she heard about you being pregnant at that
gosh.
age?
Well, unfortunately, I think I probably would have... I think she would have been very keen for me to have had an abortion.
Even the instincts of your mum and your dad to hear, where's this baby come from? Who is he? Might have taken it a bit further.
My mum would have gone all out to protect me from him, from the baby's father. I think she would have been so protective, and rightly so. I mean, really, at that time there was good evidence. Could have taken him to court, but as a young...
Brushed under the carpet.
Yeah, it was. But I think my mum would have fought that fight for me. So yeah, it was a wasted opportunity. But my mum, even, you know, she never found out. My mum passed away 2 years ago. We never had the conversation. Never told her. When my mum died, there was a huge regret that I'd never been through it all with her, that I didn't get it all out. That whole dark, horrible situation, and I did start praying, and unfortunately, I would be like saying to God, can you make sure I don't wake up in the morning? So I used to take loads of paracetamols and drink spirits in hope that I would die, which is amazing because I do believe that's very, very bad for you. And I never was much harmed from it. And I'd wake up in the morning and feel terribly disappointed that I'd got to live another day. But it was really from that dark position, really, that it kind of like catapulted me into searching for truth and for reason and for something positive to live for. And it was so obvious to me that God and the devil were real, and the spiritual battle was so real that I needed to know about it and get in the right team. So it took me several years to get from there to becoming a Catholic. But I do recall picking up a Bible and reading chunks of it, and particularly going over and over the Eucharistic, the Last Supper, and listening to Jesus saying over and over, this is my body. And I just found, I don't know why, just that particular part just really struck me as, it's incredible, what a gift and what a incredible thing that I need to know more about. And they're like super high quality walkie-talkies. I should get you to get a demonstration.
Oh
actually.
yeah, please.
But they reach all the way down to the shop, so the kids can go to the shop independently. Keep in touch with me the whole way.
It's amazing.
Ask me again 10 times what they want. And I can be like, I've run out of sugar. Get me some sugar.
It's so fun.
Can I have one and then
That
I'll go outside and then call you.
Hang on, I don't know if this is going to charge. 8?
Yes.
Is that your favourite channel?
Really? Yeah, and sometimes we even pick up the taxi drivers. Who did we hear, kids?
A guy in a taxi.
Yeah.
Saying instructions or something.
Yeah.
No, it's not judged.
Number 8, did you say?
Yes, but this one is not.
Oh,
Power on. Power on.
Okay.
is that on?
11, 12,
No.
8.
11, 9, 8, 7, 9, 8, 8.
So had you looked at any other religions, or was Christianity something that was more obvious to you?
Yeah, I mean, I was baptised as an Anglican, and I did used to go to the Anglican church sometimes. And I think the idea of one God seems reasonable. There has to be one God. There has to be a first creator, an unmoved mover. That seemed like rational and reasonable. So I thought, well, that narrows the religions down somewhat. But the fact that Christianity has this like loving nature, and Jesus came for the sinners, it just touched me, and I could relate to it. It felt real, it felt reasonable, rational, and the more I learned, the more I realised there is a truth. It wasn't an easy journey, because as my parents realised that I had an interest in Catholicism, it was fiery. We fell out a lot.
And you had a really good relationship with your mum, so that must have been tricky.
Yeah, we used to fight a lot, but we were tight. We loved each other, and we did a lot together, and she cared about me. She wanted me to make the right choices in life, and she did not want me to go down that road.
Passionate woman.
Yes.
Let's see where you get it from. Amy.
Yeah, a little bit. So it took a long time for her to accept the road that I was taking, and I think it was only just before she died, really. So it was like 10 years probably had passed, and she couldn't deny that I was happy, like deeply, and even through little struggles that I had, I kept peace. And I had peace, and I have peace still, and that is something you just can't deny.
You had any sort of background in the Anglican faith. Why were you still moving towards the Catholic faith? Was there something you weren't happy about, or was there something you were more seeking?
Yeah, do you know what it was I suddenly asked myself, where does the Anglican faith come from? Where did it start? And where did the Catholic faith come from? And where did that start? And I realised the history of the Catholic faith goes all the way back to Christ, whereas the Anglican faith goes back to Henry VIII. And I was suddenly like, so my parents were actually divorced, and I've witnessed firsthand the damage divorce can do. And I thought, so the Anglican faith essentially is built on the divorce of somebody. And that didn't feel very good to me. And I thought there has to be more to it than that. So looking at the Catholic faith and looking at the early apostles and looking at the early church, I just love that period of history. The early church is just incredible, and the first martyrs, and it was like real Christianity, pure, honest, real Christianity, people willing to die for their faith. And I thought, that's the camp that I need to be in. But I had a few issues. One was, I thought my mum probably isn't going to speak to me ever again. And then the other thought was that I just found transubstantiation, the idea, so difficult to get my tiny brain around. It was like...
That is that the host the Eucharist is not a symbol, it is the true presence of Jesus in that host.
Yes. That could be actual his body. And it's like, yeah, but it looks the same, tastes the same, snap it, and it sounds the same. And I was like, well, clearly it's just still a wafer. And I found it so difficult. I was just like, it's unreasonable to think that it could actually be changed, because our senses don't tell us that it's changed. Right, so
how is this with the logic argument? How does this go along with that?
It was really difficult for me. So anyway, I'd met my husband-to-be at that point. We were engaged at that point, and he was Catholic. And I used to go to Mass with him, because I loved everything about the Mass apart from that little bit. And I would see him genuflect, where he would kneel down as he went in. And I used to find it really offensive, and I used to think, Sam, don't do that. That's like, oh gosh, that's really bad. But anyway, so I was stuck there, and I was stuck there for quite a long time. Meanwhile, I met this fantastic priest who was friends with Sam and Sam's family. Every theological question you can imagine, I would just go,
that's great.
Yeah, but what about this? What about that? What about this? I would just go on and on and on at him. After several years of hammering him with theological questions, I was satisfied in every regard but that one transubstantiation issue. So me and Sam had planned on getting married. We were engaged. We were happily going to have a mixed marriage. I was going to remain Anglican, and that was all fine. But we decided to save my mum from the pain of getting married in a Catholic church. We would go and get married in France because there would only be Catholic churches there, and it would be so much easier for her to stomach. Me and Sam went off to France to find a church to get married in. We went for a picnic in Clairvaux, where St Bernard comes from. Didn't know any religious significance of this particular place, but we went into this church, and I recall seeing the sanctuary lamp lit, red, and was thinking about, you know, what that means to Catholics, that Jesus is truly present in the tabernacle. Spent some time in there, and out the corner of my eye saw Sam get up and leave, and we had a French friend with us at the time, and he also left. Sam was, by the way, taking photographs and filming because we were thinking this might be a nice church to get married in. Anyway, I was thinking, okay, I'm going to get up and leave now, but I just felt this burning, like beautiful burning sensation in my chest, and just feeling really loved and really just moved, deeply moved. And as I got up to leave, I could not turn around and walk out of the church. It was like a lead weight just had attached itself to my knees and compelled me to the ground. And you recall what I said about how I really found it offensive when people would kneel to the tabernacle, because I would think, that's so wrong. And yet I found myself compelled to the floor, feeling so heavy, and just this voice going, I am here. And it was frightening but glorious at the same time. And I thought, oh my gosh, Jesus is actually truly present in that tabernacle. And it just blew my mind. It blew every part of me. And I knelt there for ages. And from that moment, obviously, I had to become Catholic, and there was nothing to stop me, aside from, you know, that it would devastate my family and that kind of thing.
So did you tell Sam straight away?
No, it took me ages because it was such a big deal. I almost felt like I wanted to own it and keep it private. I didn't want to tell anybody. It sounds weird, but it was so shocking to me. I just thought, I can't share that. It's too personal. You know, some things are just too private. And I was on a high. I was like kind of buzzing. He said to me one day, you know, if it wasn't for your mum and what it would do to you and her, I think you would become a Catholic. And I said to him, why? I'm going to become Catholic. And he was really shocked, and he cried, and he was just like, oh gosh. And we hadn't got married at this point still, so he was just absolutely over the moon. So then I approached our good friend who was a priest and said to him, Father, I've got some big news. I want to become a Catholic. And I was thinking he was going to be like, whoa. And he went, yes, I know. I've already written to the bishop. I've got permission. When would you like to receive your first Holy Communion and all that kind of thing? And I was like, how dare you write to the bishop? I told you I would never become a Catholic. I was so cross. And he just smiled at me and was like, yeah, I thought you would. Within 1 week, I was receiving my first Holy Communion, and all my sacraments just took place. I went to confession, and I just felt so elated. I was just walking on the clouds.
So confession, you're elated, that's your experience, but I mean, a lot of people aren't going to confession anymore. When I was going through my I was sort of going off the railroad a bit. I didn't choose to go to confession. How did you?
Well, it took a long time. It was an interesting confession, and the poor priest had been pretty bad. Aside from the abortion and all that kind of thing, I'd lived a really kind of hedonistic life for quite a few years, and it was bad. But it was obvious to me that it wasn't enough to just confess it in your mind. It's very easy to do that. Yeah, you don't get much feedback when you just confess things in your mind, or knelt in church or something. You don't get any feedback, and it doesn't feel like there's not much penance in it. In order to get from, on a journey, you have to actually go through a bit of an effort. There is no effort in just saying it in your mind, and I felt like I needed to actually have that effort. I wanted to push myself in that way and hear what somebody had to say, and I felt pretty good, but I will admit I confessed the abortion probably 30 times or more, because it took years of going back. And I just couldn't let it go. I just thought, well, how can God forgive this? How can he? And it took years.
And to clarify as well, that when we go to the priest as Catholics, he is in persona Christi.
So that moment really struck me. In 2010, I went to confession for having been already many times, and explained the sorrow that I felt. Jesus was really there. You know, the priest was there, but in persona Christi, he was truly there. And I just felt him wrap his arms around me and say, this is it now. Stop telling me this now. I've heard it and I forgive you. It was unbelievable, really, the relief. And interestingly, me and my husband had been struggling to conceive a baby up to that point. So we'd been married 3 years then. And that year we conceived. So it was like I let it go. And in doing so, we are physical beings as well as spiritual. And I think that was like a spiritual block that I was having. I think that and other things that made a massive difference. I could pick myself up then and get on with my life. And up to that point, I found it very difficult and painful to even say the word abortion. Abortion was such a filthy word. It used to turn me inside out. And now it's like I've been given this kind of, it's like a cloak has been wrapped round me, and I can stand up in front of people now and I can tell my story. And I don't feel, I mean, obviously it's always a sad story, but I feel somehow protected. The Lord is my light and my help. Whom shall I fear?
Do you do it by yourself?
Sometimes I'll read it out loud with the kids while they're eating breakfast, and I'm like, shh, listen, this is amazing, listen. And they're like, me and Sam used to do it together, but he, as a trainee deacon, he does the proper office, which is much longer. So when he's off work, we do that together. Once he's out at work, I am not going to be able to do the full office on my own. So you just have to do what you can. And some days I don't even manage to do that properly. I do what I can, and I just kind of go, look, I've got a whole load of mess to deal with. And I think we're just living our life as one long prayer. That's how I like to see it.
That's it, exactly. It looks different.
Yeah. The Lord is the stronghold of my life. Before whom shall I shrink? Though an army encamp against me, my heart would not fear. Though war break out against me, even then would I trust. There is one thing I ask of the Lord. For this I long to live in the house of the Lord all the days of my life, to savour the sweetness of the Lord, to behold his temple. And the other thing I love about this book is that it gives you a little snippet of some wisdom from Saint Benedict on each page. For example, here it'll go, if people curse you, do not curse them back, but bless them instead. And on this page it says, refrain from too much eating or sleeping. And just every day it just has this little pearl of wisdom that you just think, you know, yes,
keep feeding yourself.
I will just do that today. If I could just do that, you know, we're just having a go, aren't we? Just trying.
And we need all these things to help us.
Absolutely. That is why I put statues and prayers all around the house, because in those dark days when, you know, when you've had a baby and you're really tired, you've not slept all night and your children are squabbling, or you've got like a mountain of washing.
It's just, yeah,
and you're just finding it, and then you can just go, I remember, I'll just quickly say that prayer, or I'll just quickly light a candle before Our Lady of Washing Up. Or whatever it might be, just like keeping God actively present in your life, even though you just feel like you're drowned in some days. And that keeps it all in perspective, and actually then you kind of go, it's not that bad. Yes, you may.
Could you have some more of that?
This? Oh, yeah, there you go.
modesty.
Yeah.
What did you think about?
So, I mean, possibly my skirts had got slightly longer when I became Catholic, just a little bit, because I was, you know, into like clubbing and I was partying really hard, and I was not thinking, pre-Catholic, I was not thinking about modesty. After being Catholic, I thought, yeah, I'm respectable, I dress accordingly, that's all great. But a few years ago, somebody, an Irish lady, challenged me and said, you know, but the thing is, you dress like a man. You're wearing trousers. And it doesn't take much of an imagination to figure out your bodily shape. And I thought, oh my gosh, it slightly offended me, because I thought, well, I'm wearing trousers and I'm wearing, you know, a jumper and whatever.
I'm
covered up. Yeah, essentially, my skin isn't showing, so that should be enough. And she was like, that isn't enough. You're allowing other people to work out your body shape. And I thought, oh gosh, that's bad. So I went away and thought about it for a while, and I thought, actually, I can see what she's saying there. And I thought, just for 1 month, I'm going to try and wear a skirt or a dress every day and see how it feels. And you know, I did feel like people responded to me differently, like looking feminine. I felt more feminine, and I felt like men would be more gentleman-like, just instinctively, almost like it just kind of happened that way. And I thought, actually, I like this. And in a world where there is so much confusion and nobody knows what they are, who they are, I thought, I'm just going to make it easy for everybody. I'm going to be a female and I'm going to look feminine. And it was just so brilliant, so liberating. And actually, I haven't worn trousers now for about 4 years.
Wow.
And they squeak as well.
Oh, me. Yes, please. You're still keeping in contact with your Irish friend who's keeping you in touch with what you should be doing.
Yeah, I mean, she's like pretty great. Interestingly, she's been on a really dark journey as well, and she used to be in mixed up with the occult and all sorts of things. So for her, it was just so matter of fact, I'm going to do everything I can to please God, every single thing I can, and I'm not going to worry about what people think of me. I really valued that and really respected it. And progressively, my wardrobe has been cleared out of all jeans and trousers and all that stuff. And I'm just so grateful, because this is what is really important about Catholic community, that we can support one another in this way. And like, she was slightly confrontational with me, but actually it's really important not to be offended, but just think about these ideas and think, well...
Were you offended when you first heard about it?
A little bit, because I was a bit like, oh my gosh, I am so modest. What are you talking about in my jeans, skinny jeans and whatnot?
I think it's so attractive to be modest. Like when I was younger, you know, like you, I like going out clubbing and socialising and just being, you know, in the world and wearing whatever. And being attractive. I always wanted to be attractive, but actually I find it just so much more attractive, like being more secretive about what I have.
Yeah.
And, you know, yeah, my modesty journey has been really interesting as well, because I definitely have come from being, that just sounds like an ugly and boring old-fashioned word,
Yeah.
to this is just a gorgeous place to be, and I love it, and I'm more comfortable as well, actually.
Well, that is the main thing. I used to find I wasn't terribly comfortable. I used to feel slightly self-conscious, and I would be like thinking, oh gosh, if I lean over this way or that way, my movements are restricted, and now I kind of feel like how comfortable I am, and actually because I feel so feminine, I don't feel unattractive. On the back of this modesty journey, I started wearing a mantilla in Mass, even in the Novus Ordo Mass. It wasn't just about Latin for me. It was, I just thought, I read what St. Paul said, and I thought, you know, like my friend in Ireland, I'm just going to do everything I can, because some things are really difficult to do for God. And some things are really easy to do for God. But, you know, the easy things aren't any less valuable than the more difficult things. So I thought, how easy would it be to just put something over my hair when I go into church? How easy is that? Well, it was like...
Socially, it's quite tricky.
Yeah, there was that, because I did walk in and everyone was kind of like, what's she doing?
How holy do you think you are?
I know, yeah, there was that. And I was called Pharisee, and There was that, but you know, I could take that on the chin because I just thought, well, yeah, but St. Paul said to do it, so I just thought, well, I may as well. And when I did,
So humbling.
yeah, it is humbling, absolutely, and also it blocks my view of so many things. It blocks out. You can't see other people so easily, and if you're leaning over praying and you've got something here, you just it's you and what is directly in front of you, which is the tabernacle. And it was, and that was kind of, it helped me concentrate, and I thought, well, I actually pray better when I've got something over my head, so I'm going to do that.
When I first heard about the mantle, I did it some years ago for a prayer intention because I found it really, really humbling to do it, and especially in a church where nobody else was doing it. And I thought, like you, I read what St. Paul had written, and I thought I should do it, but I am feeling really embarrassed and just that I'm trying to do something more holy, and I'm not. I'm just trying to be obedient. So initially that's how I felt it to be. But then when I heard more about why we cover up as well, so initially this St. Paul's is about sort of the authority and our places in the sort of the order. But actually also there's the rules, but then there's the practical output has got like like the benefits to it as well, and it does block me from being distracted more. And I'm not currently wearing one because I've got children. It just I've tried, but it comes off and on so often that actually it's become more distracting.
If you look at princesses in like all Disney, they have their hair, they have a beautiful thing over their hair, and my girls love that. They're like, yay, I'm a princess.
And Our Lady was veiled.
Yeah.
The Ark of the Covenant was veiled.
Yes.
It's a great honour that the women have that position. That to be.
So
It's not.
It's not reducing us. It's lifting us to a higher level. We should mark that and celebrate being feminine.
Amy, thank you so much for our chat. Loved it. And our day, and your gorgeous pups and lovely children. Thank you so much for having us and for being so honest and generous with your story.
It's my pleasure, and actually saying these things out loud to an audience who might recognise some of the sorrows and pain that I've had, it's really therapeutic to me, and I love the opportunity. So thanks for coming.
Please keep Amy in your prayers and her family, and thank you so much for watching. God bless.